Hello, this is Dr. Flight. I wanted to create this very short segment on professionalism in product development and in brand management. It takes certain qualities and features for an organization to be innovative. We'll talk about that in another segment, but also it takes special features and traits for a person to be innovative as well. So when we think about product development, we think about a creativity that often exists, but then also a very analytical part of the person as well. And so just wanted to spend a few minutes today talking about product development and brand management as a profession and what type of person fits well in this field. As you begin to think about product development and the product development process, one of the first steps that we want to address is where new ideas come from. And so a lot of times this is left to the creativity and the imagination of product developers or individuals who have simply an idea for a new product. The question, though, is from a professional perspective, what does it take for you to do well in this particular profession? So being creative, of course, is one element. As well, though, we want to be analytical. And in fact, we need to be able to do both when we want to think about developing new products and then managing products as they go through a sales cycle. So we want to be able to think outside the box, to be creative, to think about new products and services that maybe don't exist yet, but ones that could be created. So to do that, you have to really kind of imagine what might work but doesn't currently exist. And then the next step is to be able to test that idea in a very analytical way to determine whether that idea for a product really makes sense, whether it's one that will be successful in the marketplace and be one worth pursuing. So at the end of the day, one of the questions we have in business and in particular product development is this question of whether this practice is an art which would require a lot of creativity, or is it more of a science? Where we think of things as being more analytic, more logic focused, and so forth. One useful tool that can be used to help illustrate this notion is something called the Creativity Index, where, as you see in the upper left-hand corner, we have an area called No Creativity. But then along the top here, we have a range basically from no creativity, where somebody really lacks kind of the imagination needed to create something new, to an artist, an artistic level of creativity where someone could take a blank canvas and create something that's brand new, that's aesthetically pleasing. It can be very emotional. It can be very touchy, feely, artsy, if you will, something along those lines. But it's creative in the sense that something is new that didn't exist before, but it took a unique person to see how that piece of art or how that end product could be created. So that's one dimension of the creativity index. The other dimension of the creativity index is on a scientific type of motivation, where you think of maybe a chemist or a scientist working in a laboratory, maybe an engineer, has the ability to see how something, a phenomenon in science might exist and why it happens to be. And so this degree of scientific creativity is where we use some logic and some theory to put something together that may be new or maybe revealing that one has never really thought of before. It's a little bit like if you are putting together a new chemical compound that would be used in a new drug for medicine. Many people are aware of different compounds and combinations of compounds, but it might take a really creative scientific mind to create just the right compound that could be used to maybe solve an illness or cure a disease or something along those lines. So that form of creativity is certainly unique, yet we think of it more as scientific. As we think about what an inventor or what a highly innovative person may be involved with, we kind of have to have both of these characteristics. You need to be able to think outside the box and be creative from an artsy perspective, but also a chemist or a scientist would use rigor in order to test and make sure that the products that are being developed will stand the test of time, that they meet quality tolerances, that they meet the customer's expectations, and so forth. So a creative person who has also some scientific grounding, but then can also think of things that haven't ever been created before, really falls into that inventor category on the creativity index. Now, moving forward, professionally, when we think of product development and we think of brand management and product management, there are a couple organizations to consider that you would be interested in looking at for more information. The Product Development and Management Association, the PDMA, is a major and fairly significant professional organization for those involved in product development and innovation management within a company. So the PDMA would be an organization to look for that would help guide professional standards in the industry, and then also best practices and benchmarks practices that companies could use and engage in when developing new products. There's also the American Marketing Association. The AMA is again an international organization that's focused on best practices in marketing and includes a very large contingent of professionals that are focused on product development and also brand management. So professionally, there are certainly outside professional organizations that help our industry and our profession move forward. So what does it take to be innovative, or what does it mean to be innovative? Remember, innovation can happen at an individual level, and we expect it to, maybe with groups of entrepreneurs or inventors, but we also want to keep in mind that organizations can possess innovative features as well. And so this is an important feature when you're managing a company or managing a firm. If you want to create new products that are innovative, then certainly we want to look for aspects the company would have that would suggest an innovative firm. So one of those would be its ability to reinvent itself or reposition the purpose of the firm relative to the customers they have or the markets that they serve. So over time, the customers we serve and the products that we develop change. And oftentimes our services and what we provide to the marketplace changes because our customers change. If we're not able to reinvent ourselves or change how we operate to match customer demand or market demand, then we'll be left behind, and some other organization or firm will certainly take that slack on. The innovative firm also is what we call risk loving. They accept risk. They are willing to accept that some of their new products will fail, and that failure risk is something they're willing to absorb as part of their business model. So in order to create one new successful product, for instance, they realize that they may go through 2 or 3 failed products in order to get to that one success. Therefore, they're willing to risk losing money. They're willing to risk time. They're willing to risk all sorts of elements of their business in order to be innovative. Third element here is that entrepreneurial or innovative firms put a lot of emphasis on their employees and creating a culture of innovativeness. They focus heavily on technology use and advancing technologies. And again, they're willing to use technologies in innovative ways or new ways in order to move their product development process along. And then finally, they're typically very adept at knowing what they do well, and in fact using what they currently have in their own product and brand portfolio to act as a springboard to create new products moving forward. So certainly there are ways to manage innovation, and these are just a few of the elements that you would look for that to be able to develop an innovative firm. So meanwhile, while we're trying to create innovation, we know that there are certain elements that keep firms and organizations from being innovative themselves. So these might be thought of as obstacles towards innovation. One of which is this idea of change inertia, or this institutional resistance to change. So some institutions are hold back from making changes either in their processes, or they don't want to try to do new things, or there's some fear that they will lose efficiency in adopting some new process. So what has to happen is somebody needs to start change in order for change to take over or progress. So initiating change initially is one element that has to happen in order for an organization to become innovative. Also, as we've mentioned before, when you empower employees, you create a culture of innovation. And so if employees are not empowered, or they don't feel like they can make changes on their own, then they'll certainly struggle culturally with fitting in if they do indeed want to change, but the structure of the organization won't let them. Which leads us to this third point, organizational structure, which is suggested by maybe a top-down or heavily managed organization that is very bureaucratic. So some organizations have a lot of rules and a lot of rules to follow. They're very, very structured, tightly structured, and that tends to hinder the ability for the organization to be flexible enough to innovate. So one way we can work towards eliminating some of these obstacles would be to be able to identify and then bring in and recruit individuals who have innovation or have an innovative, outgoing personality, in the sense that they're willing to change and see change management as a positive type of a thing. So within a firm, for it to be innovative, structurally inside the firm, some changes have to take place. But then also another way to achieve this is to bring new people from the outside in who can bring a much needed degree of change or sense or culture of innovation to the firm that may not already be there already. So innovation and managing innovation is a big deal from a product development standpoint. Another aspect of this course deals with managing products once the product has been developed and moving forward. So we want to think of product management as a professional element of what we're doing here as well. So again, when we think about a product manager, we're looking at somebody who can play multiple roles within the firm, in the sense that they have to be able to focus and read and understand the market, but at the same time, they understand that products act as a cash flow for an organization. They act as an investment, and so their ability to manage their product is heavily dependent on their ability for the product to support the goals and objectives the firm has in sales, unit sales, profitability, and things of that nature. So when we think about that product manager and the role that they play, they need to be able to identify what profitable opportunities exist, but very specifically within markets that the organization is looking to go into. So there's a market view the product manager needs to have, but then there's also the profitability view the manager has to have as well, so that they fulfill the goals and objectives of the organization while they serve the market all at the same time. Other things that the product manager does include launching the products that have been designed into the marketplace. So assuming the product has been developed, they need to make sure that the product is delivered, that it hits the shelf, that the marketing elements are all in place so that the product can launch. They manage products that are already within the product portfolio. So products that are already in the marketplace need to continue to be managed, and we manage sales and the positioning of the product over time. So there's a good degree of that happens once the product is launched and after it's launched. And then at some point, the product's usefulness in the marketplace tends to diminish and needs to be reinvented. It needs to be redeveloped, or a new solution to the customer's need needs to be identified, which will ultimately replace the product you're currently supervising or managing. Continuing, we think about the positioning again of the product. We think about the product as something that possesses a brand or an image in the mind of the consumer. So when we think about positioning, and specifically positioning the product, one of the elements we want to consider is what the customer thinks about our brand. Or our product, and whether that we have it positioned correctly in the mind of the consumer. So this may include elements that involve price changing the features of the product to make it maybe more sophisticated, or we want to go the other direction and make it more of a value offering. We want to think about where it's delivered and how it's delivered, and we want to look at the image of the actual product and manage that from a branding perspective. We want to think about sales, right? So the actual unit sales that we're selling, that we're creating, have to be managed in that sense. Therefore, we're responsible for profit and loss features that the product will have. We want to be able to bring new products into the marketplace, as I mentioned before, as our existing products go into what we call the decline stage. We want to be able to champion new products. So when we have a new product idea, or if we want to be the product manager of a product, we need to be their biggest cheerleader. If you're going to be a product manager of it, you need to take ownership of the product, both the sales of the product and the positioning of the product, and that product needs to be your bread and butter, the thing that you really are endeared to, and then you've got to champion that across the entire organization. Okay, so finally, again, just to reiterate this notion that we want to manage a portfolio of products, it's important to remember that most products that we offer don't become an offering as a standalone product. Usually when a product is developed and launched, it's in concert with other products that already exist. So we have this notion that we have product complements, where we have one product that's offered, and then we'll offer other products that will be flanking products, or they'll be products that perform some other role in the use of the product we're currently offering. Moving forward then, what product managers do, we need to be really, really strong communicators. We communicate the benefits of our products to our customers, but then also internally, we're still selling our product across institutional barriers and within the organization. We are avid users of research. So whether that's quantitative research or qualitative research, we're doing sales forecasts, we're analyzing our marketing mix, and we're spending a lot of time looking at numbers and determining what the best approach is to move forward to maximize sales. The manager of a product also, again, understands the mission and objectives, the goals of the firm, because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want to support the goals of the firm, and we want to achieve certain goals that meet objectives that the firm has laid out, and our product array is one way that we want to be able to do that. Finally here, the product manager needs to be able to understand that there are many, many different pressures that will that will impact sales. And so from an external perspective, being able to understand very, very big market trends and external trends that will impact sales is huge. So new competition coming in, being able to understand what a new product or competitor would do to our sales would be important. Understanding the regulatory or legal impact of new regulations on my product, something I need to be aware of. And other external factors like suppliers, the environment in general, and the economic environment as well. So it's important then as a product manager to be super focused on your product and managing those elements that the product would have, particularly sales, market share, profit margin, capacity for producing the product, and so forth. One of the things that the product manager will need to be able to do is bridge the gap between many different areas in the organization. So typically within the organization, there are a number of silos, if you will, or departments or groups of employees who have specific functional roles. There's no question that a product manager will have interaction across many of these interorganizational functions. So to be able to manage sales, you need to be able to work with those who are developing the ads and the marketing and the promotion of the product. The operations from a production perspective, making sure quality is assured, and so forth. So the product manager then absolutely impacts much of the firm, and has input in a lot of different areas from an internal perspective. Again, while they're keeping an eye on the market and understanding what external market trends are taking place. So to wrap this up and to just kind of summarize briefly, product developers and managers need to be creative and they need to be analytical. It's a dual type of creativity where you're scientific, but you're also artsy at the same time to be able to manage a product well, and the product development process in particular. The product manager and firms in general have to strive to create a culture of innovation within a firm. It has been shown that innovative firms tend to be more competitive than non-innovative firms, and so being innovative could lead to a competitive advantage if developed properly. And then finally, a big point is that the product manager is a bridge to many of the different business functions internally within the firm, but then also think of the product manager as being the bridge between the firm and the market or the customer as well. The product manager has to be able to understand the market, but through the eyes and the lens of the firm and the firm's objectives and goals. Okay, so that wraps up this short segment on product development and brand management as a profession.